Nice job. All right, nice to see everyone. I did not send out any reminders today. I just didn't. I don't have any really good excuse for it, except for I was busy. So this is what happens. We get just a dozen or so, and that's great. That's really good for today, especially since I didn't prepare either. So let's talk about Revelation. We're gonna have some fun. What was that? Oh,
I whispered to Sarah, do you want to go grab one of the commentaries real quick?
yeah, right. We're just gonna read the commentary. Read Rob's book out loud to us for the next hour. No, I've done enough work in Revelation that I'm pretty sure I could say something valuable, something of help, even though I didn't do it today. So let's start with prayer. Father, thank you very much for another opportunity to look at your word. This text that you've given to your people Israel and to your people today, 2,000 years later. Pray that you would help us to understand and to practice what we glean from these sacred words. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So we are in chapter 8. So the first thing we're going to do, though, is do a little review. Okay, so this is everyone's hands on their buzzers. You're ready to answer. You don't actually have to buzz anything. You have to say your name. You got to be like, say my name. Just nail it out there, and then you will be the lead, and you'll get to say the answer to this. And I'm sure this isn't going to work, and people are just going to yell out whatever they want. All right, so ready? We'll start really simple. Just quiz time, about 15, 20 questions. Ready? Who wrote the Apocalypse?
John.
John.
Lisa, John.
Holy Spirit.
John. By the power of the Holy Spirit. Excellent. Nice little theological addition there, Travis. All right. What is the likely date of the apocalypse? When was it written? General time period.
90,
80.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
72 to 92 AD.
That's right. Yeah. Some people would argue for pre-temple. So that would be before 70, before the temple was destroyed. But we're taking more of a perspective of a much later writing of the book. So we're assuming that going in, and then we're kind of picking up on little things as we've seen as we're doing to see if they support that. So the question is, where's the temple in this, and what emperors is it under? That's how you try and figure this couple of stuff out. All right. What kind of literature do we call this particular book?
Apocalyptic.
Apocalyptic, which means
Revealing.
revealing or unveiling or opening your eyes, right? So
Right.
the same thing that happens to Paul on the road to Damascus. Eyes are open. You've had some apocalyptic things go on in your life before, like, oh my goodness, maybe a particularly awesome sermonizer, right? You're just like, what? Oh, it all comes together. And you consider that like a moment you opened your eyes. Or when you came to Christ, maybe your eyes opened in some new way. All right. Name 2 other apocalyptic books.
Daniel?
Daniel. Excellent.
In Ezekiel.
Ezekiel is pretty apocalyptic for sure. Any others?
No, Daniel's not.
Daniel and Ezekiel are the ones we've talked about the most for sure. But there's a bunch more out there, like the Assumption of Moses, the Book of Enoch, right? Not scripture, not in our canon, but they're out there. So there's a whole genre of this kind of writing that includes angels and some sort of prophetic kind of tone to it, and visions, lots of visions, and lots of cataclysmic language, and lots of end of the world or end of the era kinds of things. Remember, end of the world is not the same. We're not talking about that when we talk about Revelation. Not necessarily talking about the end of the world. We're talking about the end of an era, end of a time, and a new time starting.
Is
How about
Micah?
anything in the any OT, Old Testament?
Any Old Testament book is going to be apocalyptic? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, because they all kind of cycle through that in an omnibus fashion, do they not?
Yeah, I think I might say that every Old Testament book is eschatological. That is, it's pointing to that end of the era kind of thing, that where it's heading towards. In which case, the New Testament is as well. I don't know that I would call it apocalyptic in this genre,
Okay.
where it all is
Okay.
dealing with things like stars falling out of the heavens or angels
Yeah,
coming
yeah,
to do
yeah, yeah,
something
yeah.
or lots of faces,
You
like
mean
lots
more
of
plain.
imagery like that. Sorry, Dave, did you say something too? Somebody else said
Oh.
something?
I wasn't sure. Is Micah one also, or is that different? I'm looking it up now.
Apocalyptic. I have to look back at Micah and remember that. I have to in my head, I have to remember what Micah's about. And I can't do that. I have to, it's very funny. I mean, you guys, some people think, all right, PhD in Old Testament, right? He knows his Old Testament inside and out. He can read Hebrew fluently. He could do all these. I'll just tell you, that was 20 years ago. And, I'm not real great at the languages anymore. And I can't for the life of me remember what 3 or 4 of the prophets are, of the 12. I know the Micah, the ones that everybody else knows, the gospel narrative parts that are in there about Ephrathah, Judah, Micah 5:12. Like, I know those things. I can't put the story together in my head. I can't do it.
I
for
can't
Zechariah
believe
either.
that anyone would be able to do that for all the Old Testament. So the fact that
Yeah.
there was ever a point in your life, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
How about Isaiah?
I like to think that there was a point in my life that I knew them all. I'd say most Old Testament professors who do this as their job, that are teaching those classes, probably can tell you in a sentence or two what each book is about without any problem. Because that's what they do
Wow.
every day.
Yeah.
So, what'd you say, Travis? Somebody said something?
Isaiah?
I was gonna say, what about like Blade Runner and Armageddon? Are those apocalyptic?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they have
No,
something.
I think Isaiah is about.
Blade Runner and Armageddon. Yeah, Armageddon's about the end of the world, although it's not very apocalyptic, really.
No, but Isaiah is.
Yes, the book of Isaiah. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it's got some apocalyptic parts to it,
This is history.
but it's not a genre. It's not an apocalyptic genre.
Genre. Okay.
So-
I'm done. I tap
But
out.
like the book of Thessalonians has some apocalyptic pieces in it, or eschatological pieces. Matthew, the Olivet Discourse, right, talks about the end of time. It's got little pieces that are pulled out. So there is no plain genre like it's just pure. Like this is the only thing in there. They're all going to be mixes of genres.
Yeah.
Just like, you can go to an action movie in the action section, but it's not pure action. Right? There's
No.
probably some sort of drama plot. There's probably a romance in there somewhere. There's a line of poetry in every DVDs, whatever. So, all right, I'll keep going. Let's see. What are the first, the first chapter. What's the first chapter about?
The vision.
The vision of Christ.
Yeah.
Okay, and how do they describe Christ?
Oh,
What's his physical characteristics? How are his eyes and his hair?
Like fire?
Fiery.
White-
Yeah. Very
white hair,
fiery. Blazing.
fire eyes,
Yeah.
sword in his mouth.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what are chapter 2 and 3 about?
the
The churches.
churches, the 7 churches.
Good. All right. I'm quite sure you're not going to remember this, but let's just try it for fun because some of you are that smart, or you're just looking right now in your Bibles. Which is the church that is called dead? Dead church. And which is
Smyrna.
I think the dead church is Sardis.
Sardis.
Which is the church that's left its first love?
Ephesus.
Which one left its first love? Someone said it, I think.
Yeah. Ephesus.
Ephesus. Okay, good. Which is the church that has Satan's throne?
Mm.
Smyrna.
Satan's throne. Are they following Jezebel and sexual immorality? And
Pergamum.
Yes, Pergamum. Yes,
oh, okay,
Pergamum. I think Satan's throne shows up in 2 of them, though. Now that I think about it.
okay.
But
Smyrna says synagogue of Satan.
okay, there you go. Good. Which church is lukewarm?
Laodicea.
Good. All right. Okay. So what's the 4th chapter about?
The throne in
throne.
heaven.
Throne. Good
Yeah.
job. And name some things around the throne.
Hmm.
Remember, we had a big
Elders.
diagram up here with the throne in the middle.
Yeah,
Other
God, divine,
thrones.
the Trinity, the numbers, the 3, 4, 7. We got into all
24
that.
thrones around it, 24
Yeah, the 7
thrones.
seals.
24
light.
thrones. Yeah. What
Yeah.
else?
7
24.
lamps.
Hmm.
7.
Lamps.
Okay.
And
7 lampstands. Okay.
4 living creatures.
4 living creatures. Yeah. With those weird faces. Yeah.
The elders sitting on the throne.
Elders. Okay. Good. All right. So
Torches.
torches. Right. So and the different colors. Right. The different stone colors. The rainbow. All this stuff that it's this target in the middle when it goes further and further out. Okay, good. What is the song? The song the 4 living creatures sing day and night.
Holy, holy, holy. 24/7.
Yes, Lord Almighty, who was and is to come. Okay, good. What's the 5th chapter about?
Scroll.
Oh,
Father's hand.
Okay, wait, say that again.
A scroll in the Father's hand.
Okay, scroll in the Father's hand. Okay, yep. And who is the one who comes and is worthy?
Jesus.
The lamb.
Right. And what did I describe? I think is like the coolest metaphor in that book, in the whole book, maybe in the whole Bible, that he hears that they say the Lion of Judah is the one who is willing, who is able, and then he turns and he sees what?
The lamb. The lamb.
Already said. Just such a cool idea. Who is worthy to open the scroll? The Lion of Judah, who's ransomed many. And then he turned to look to see the Lion of Judah. It's the
The
Lamb.
lamb.
It's like,
Yeah.
like that should be the picture that you see of Revelation. Even though it looks like war and fury and power, it's really how he gets all of that power is upside down, right? It's all
I got goosebumps when you said that. That is just so wonderful.
it is. It's
That's
so
beautiful.
but it's really hard for us to mimic that, isn't it? In the world that we live in, which is all about power and all about power over, right? And getting out my respect and, I deserve this. To find power at the end of sacrifice just that's not American. That's not the American way. Or maybe it's not.
It was yesterday.
It was yesterday.
We had a great Martin Luther King event, and they talked about how it was all about showing love and no nonviolence, and
Wow.
yeah,
They did that in Warsaw.
they did. Courthouse coffee.
Wow. Very cool.
Yeah.
That's good.
Travis's new business. It's a
Yeah.
coffee barista now. Cool. All right. Let's see here. What's the new song sung in chapter 5? Not holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty, but
You are worthy.
yes.
Worthy is the lamb.
Yeah, good. And what's chapter 6 about?
oh, the 4 horsemen.
That's right, the seals. And that's the next question I was going to ask Steve. What are the first 4 seals known more colloquially as?
Horseman.
The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, right? And they're famine and war and death, right? This destructive power that's coming in these first 4. And how many are affected by the seals? You remember this?
Quarter? Is this the quarter?
That's right, a quarter of them.
Yeah.
What are the martyrs under the throne crying out?
How
How
long?
long, oh
yeah,
Lord.
when will we get our justice?
Right. And then last week we did chapter 7. What's chapter 7, if you were to summarize it?
The
In
seal.
one word or one, say again, I heard something.
144,000.
Good, 144,000 and 144,000 is the first, remember it's 2 parallel stories.
The multitude.
Yeah, the great multitude. Okay, and I tried to make an argument, at least adequately, I don't know if it's adequate or not, that what we're talking about with the 144,000 is the great multitude, that this is a parallel story, just told different ways. One is to connect them to their roots of Israel, but also to say it's more than Israel, it's also the whole world, right? It's open to all. Because that's a big thing. That's what the New Testament is largely about, right? If we were to summarize the New Testament, it's about, hey guys, because of the cross of Christ, the Gentiles are included in the kingdom. That's huge in an insider-outsider world for them to say everybody's an insider. And then the church keeps going with we're that insider-outsider thing. Like the gospel, the whole point of the gospel is that you can't do that anymore. You can't have an insider-outsider. Okay.
And the Lamb on the throne will be your shepherd, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes.
Yeah, that's another cool metaphor, right? The lamb will be the shepherd. You're like, well, yeah, that's not how it
Lamb
works.
on the throne will be your shepherd.
Okay. And how do we know they're protected? These 144,000. What does it say that they are? I said they're protected. Sealed, right?
Yeah.
They're sealed. The servants of God are sealed on their foreheads.
Yeah.
Right. And what is 144,000? We didn't say that, but say that 144,000 is what? The 12?
12 tribes,
Tribes.
12,000 from the
Probably
12
12 tribes, 12 apostles multiplied by a myriad. By
Yeah.
a huge number.
12,000.
Okay. And chapter 8. What is chapter 8 about?
Sorry.
All right, here we go. All right.
Jace,
see,
a quick
I
question.
prepared something. What?
Quick question. So
Yes, sir.
the word that's used for seal in the sealing of the 144,000, is that originally the same word as the seal for the seals on the scroll? Or is it a different type of, oh, it is?
Yep.
Okay.
Same word.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Thank you.
I am 98% positive of that. But if you give me the verse, I can tell you with 100% certainty.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, it's 7:4 is the sealing of the 144,000.
Okay. 7:4.
6:1 talks about the 7 seals.
Yep. Okay. And what's the other one? What's the
6:1 talks
6:1?
about the 7 seals. Open one of the 7 seals.
Srapagiton. Yeah. I mean, it's the same root word. Yep.
Which is?
Oh my goodness.
Ah,
You're testing me. It's esragasmenenon.
Yeah, write that down, Lori.
Yeah. I can't write anything down because I can't use my right hand.
So
So
is there any like complement? I mean, is there a I don't know, like a wordplay or a something going on where you're unsealing the scroll and then sealing the 144? Like, is it an unsealing and a sealing? Like, is that a play against each other, or is it just happens to be the same wording?
yeah, I mean, I don't know the answer to that. So you're asking me to figure out if John is trying to do it on purpose, like playing with that. I haven't thought about that, to be honest with you. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm now going to probably spend a little bit of time looking that up. So the seals on the scroll are to protect the scroll from being opened, to keep it safe. And the seals on their foreheads are to protect them from the judgment of the trumpets and the seals. So
Maybe it's just they use seals a lot in that time, and like it's not odd to have the same use for that in multiple ways. But it stands out to me that like it goes through this long unsealing, and then at the end there's a sealing. So, yeah.
that's a really obvious and great point that I hadn't thought about. So, yeah, like we're going to open up the seals, and here we're going to seal you from the seals. We're going to have to
Yeah.
protect you from the seals. I don't know what's on there. I haven't read anything about it, or I've forgotten if I have. So now I'll look into that more. I'll do a little quick work on that. Other than just Greek, I'll look at my Greek interlinear or something for the tools that Jace, the exegete, can no longer do real quickly and easily with his Greek Bible.
Yeah, that's what Google's for.
All right, so here we go. Let's jump in here. Eugene Peterson says this: there's nothing new here that we couldn't read in the rest of the Bible. This is a new way to say what we've already heard. I read Revelation not to get more information, but to revive my imagination. I love that line. I read Revelation not to get more information, but to revive my imagination. So I said for a long time, we need to stop demythologizing Bible and remythologizing. We need to let our imaginations go, because that's what generally is trying to do. But you know, that's what all these different genres are about. They're not trying to give you propositional truths necessarily. They're trying to grab your emotions sometimes. So it's not just intellect, it's emotion. It's just this feel that you might get from something. So let the feelings of this text and the trumpets, as the angels put the trumpets to their lips. And when they do that and you see things start to just be crushed, like think through what that looks like as an angel stands and then stars fall and like all these things start happening. Okay, because these are the trumpets of judgment. There was some question, especially when Travis was teaching about the seals, as to whether the seals are really judgment or not. Okay. I still like the word judgment. I'm not sure, but we did see something in the seals that is going to be different in the trumpets. The seals seem to be judgments that are like automatic from the way we, like, if you do life like this is kind of what comes from it. It's this intrinsic connection between the things. Okay. This one seems to be more supernatural, more like, okay, lightning bolts coming. Eugene Peterson calls it a reversed thunder. Like it's I don't know exactly what that means, but it's God's doing something. This is kind of scary. Like this is the passage, remember, where the locusts that look like men, that have horses, that ride like horses, but have faces like locusts and heads. I don't even remember, but they sting like scorpions, right? It's that passage. It's the passage where they open up the pit. The angel comes down to heaven and opens it's scary. This is where all the bad dreams come from. If you turn these into like literal things in your head, you're going to have nightmares from looking at this passage. And you're going to thinking as you're reading this, okay, God, world, like, how dare you? How can you be doing all this? And I want you to be thinking, remember, this is written to people who are struggling with life itself. Okay, probably if not being tortured directly, right on the verge of it. The poor, the ones who are hurting and are crying out, Lord, when are you going to take care of us? Like everything torturous is happening around us. And he's saying, God is on your side. He's listening. And the way that you speak of God being on your side throughout the Bible is to say, my God's bigger than everyone else's God. Right? So just remember the way that you do literature. It's like two kids in the sandbox. My dad's bigger than your dad. He can beat you up. And the dad's sitting over there going, first of all, I can't beat up his dad. His dad's twice as big as me. But I wouldn't do it anyway. In fact, I'd love it. Right? But it's the way we see God. So we need to make some decisions here as we continue forward. Is God this judging, violent, vengeful, wrathful God? Or is this a picture that we're supposed to get of him that's going to tell us something else? Okay. But no matter what, we're supposed to at least hear this judgment. Hear in the word judgment, the word justice. Right? That God is putting things right. That the powerful have been destroying the weak for too long. So now it's going to be turned upside down. And now the powerful are going to be under the foot of the king. Okay, so that's what it's meant to look like that. It's violent language. The things that are going to happen are painful. But that's what it means. When we say that thing all the time, thy kingdom come, every week in some of our churches, thy kingdom come. That's what we mean. Like, we want the king to come back in justice and take care of the problems. Like, did you know, I heard today that we have, so far this year, we've had 30 mass shootings. It's only like, what, the 18th or 19th? What's the date of today?
17.
17.
17th. We've had 30 mass shootings in America. Somebody has to do something. It's not going to be us, apparently, right? Hopefully it will be us, but 2 a day? Mass, not shootings, mass shootings. Okay, anyway, we'll get on. I'm not gonna say anything over that. All right, so this is, I'm trying to set this up because we're in a whole new section now, right? So we've moved out of the seals, kind of. We're actually kind of on the 7th seal, right? So we're moving out of the seals and we're going into the trumpets. Okay, so these 7 trumpets are simultaneous with the 7 seals. Okay, seals, trumpets, bowls. They all look very similar. They're retributive. That is, they're meant to punish the wicked, it looks like. They're out to get them, but not a full punishment. Okay, the trumpets are this warning, and the bowls are kind of the full punishment. So we've got the things that happen naturally in the seals. We've got the get ready, all this terrible stuff is happening, and then that's the trumpets, and then the bowls. So there's a movement, but they're all kind of saying the same thing. Does that make sense? I call it recapitulation. It's a story being told. It's progressively parallel. So you're going to see, man, I wish I could write. Let's see if I can. So you're going to see, what are these? Seals. Oh my goodness, this is not good. Seals, trumpets. We'll just write
That's
Trump.
good.
Trump. We'll leave it at Trump. Is that good enough for everybody? All right.
Yeah,
Seals,
That's good.
Trump, and bowls or vials.
You need to write left-handed all the time.
Yeah,
That's really
I can read
good.
it.
because I have to go so slowly. All right. So the seals, you're gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, these are the 4 horsemen, right? In the trumpets, you're gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4. And in the bowls, you're gonna have 1, 2. I started, I have to finish it now. 3, 4. Then there's gonna be a pause. So the second group is this different thing. Then there's gonna be 6 and 7. Then there's gonna be 6 and 7. There's gonna be 6. Wait, I missed 5 altogether. 5 and 6. 5 and 6 and 5. I don't know how to make that a 5. That's the worst thing I've ever seen. 5 and 6. Okay, so there's this break here for all of them. And then there's a break here. And then the 7th is going to come later. Okay, so that's kind of your structure for each one of them. And like these are going to be called the woes. So they have separate names, they do different things. We're going to look at each one of those things. But they're meant to be parallel. There's movement a little bit. There's progression, but they're also very similar. So this would be like, 1/4. These are going to be 1/3. I should stop writing. It's terrible. Okay, so there's going to be a movement, a progressively parallel kind of thing. The first 4 being very physical, except these 4 being very physical, except for, I guess, maybe the hail. And fire has blood and locusts that attack men and not trees, but we'll get to all of that stuff. So these are the warnings for the bowls that are coming. All right, you got that. You ready? Let's go. Chapter 8. I told you I had nothing to say about this book. So here we go. We haven't even gotten into the chapter yet, and I've already said way too much. So when the Lamb opened the 7th seal, that's what we've been waiting for, right? For the book to finally be opened. So there was silence in heaven for about a half an hour. So, like this huge pause. It's like the people realize something is about to happen, and there's just like open. Like the this pause, there's this breathless silence as they await the judgments that are about to come. So in a sense, this seventh one has come into this. Okay, that's the next section. The seventh is now about to enter into this. All right. By the way, I should say here, just being kind of a jerk male, that obviously this is proof that there are no women in heaven, right? Silence in heaven for half an hour. Please. All right. Thank you, everyone. All right. So here we go. Number 2. I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and 7 trumpets were given to them. And another angel came and stood at the altar with a golden censer, and he was given much incense to mingle with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar before the throne. And the smoke of the incense rose with the prayers of the saints from the hand of the angel before God. Then the angel took the censer and filled it with fire from the altar and threw it on the earth. And there were peals of thunder, voices, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. Now the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets made ready to blow them. Okay, haven't even blown the trumpets yet. All right, so what do you notice in this? What catches your eye? This is not just Jace teach you everything. I don't even know what I'm talking about most of the time.
Yeah. Well, it's sure dramatic.
Okay, it is, isn't it? Yeah.
It's like the drum roll. Here it comes.
Yeah,
It's coming. It's
yeah.
coming.
Yeah. That pause, and you're like, okay. And then we see the 7 angels who stand before God, and 7 trumpets are given to them. Like, it's like the 7 angels who stand before God, like they have a status of, you're the angels who stand before God. You're not just the angels who stand before God. And actually in the Old Testament or in Second Temple literature, other Second Temple literature, they're called the standing ones. They're a particular group of archangels, like in First Enoch. So they are, well, you tell me, who are the angels? Maybe you know who they are. Maybe you've heard of them before.
Michael, Gabriel.
Gabriel, Michael.
They're the famous ones.
And the other guys.
That's right. And the other side. That's right. Yeah, the ones that nobody remembers. Uriel,
Dasher,
Ra-
Dancer,
Grumpy, and Sneezy.
Rudolph.
Mario,
Donatello.
Luigi.
Donatello. Nice. Okay. Yeah. Uriel, Raphael, Raguel, Sarakel, and Remiel are the
That's
7.
in scripture?
Nope. These are the ones that come out of First Enoch.
Okay.
The First Enoch is part of the.
Apocrypha.
It is an
No.
apocrypha book, but it's not technically
Not
part of
the-
like the Catholic apocrypha.
Intertestamental.
That's true too. What's the title of this intertestamental group of writings?
The other guys.
Other guys, yes. It's called the Pseudepigrapha.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Suda what?
Pseudepigrapha. So Pseudepigrapha.
So it's false
writings.
writings.
Yep.
Oh, epigraph. Okay.
Pseudepigrapha.
But John would have definitely been referencing that, right? And these
There's
7
very-
angels.
There's very good chance that he would have known all of these. Yeah, all of these Second Temple writings. They would have been, even if he didn't know specifically First Enoch where this comes from, which he probably did. So I think the version that we have is probably a Christian version of First Enoch. It's probably been changed according to Charles Worth anyway, but there are earlier versions. So there's an Ethiopic version. There's different versions of Enoch. So he probably would have known them. If he didn't know that particular text, he would have lived in the same world of the people who knew about the standing ones.
Are there any other writings that we know about that name these 7 angels, or is that all from Enoch? Though, as far as we know.
I don't know of any ones off the top of my head that name all 7. But
Okay.
there are other angels named in other books, like the Assumption of Moses is all about Samael, one of the death angels that comes to try to take away Moses's life, and Moses basically beats him back with his rod. Actually, he has to voice the name of God, but there's some legends that say that what name of God is on the rod, on the staff itself. So some
And
might
that's one of the
also-
angels. That's one of the angels in Enoch.
No, that's one in the Assumption of Moses.
Okay, so that's like an eighth. Okay, all right.
Yeah, so there's the standing one. There's lots of angels, right?
Uh-huh.
These 7 to be in one category of the 7, there's a pretty good chance that that's what he's talking about when he names the 7 here. We don't know. Maybe he's just
Mhm.
saying 7 because 7 is like, let's be honest here, 7 is a pretty big number in Revelation, right? So maybe he doesn't have in mind any particular angels. He just knows 7 is the number that you want, because I'm going to have 7 bowls and I'm going to have 7 trumpets and I'm going to have 7 seals. So I have 7 angels. And
Mhm.
maybe it didn't work the other way around.
Okay.
It won't matter. It
Mhm.
won't change things, but I just like to bring in a little bit of other information from their world.
Yeah.
They would have known about. And we know that Gabriel stands in the presence of God. He's one of the standing ones, right? Because he's the one who's given the message to go tell Mary, right? So he's right there. God says something and he goes. All right. So the trumpets, I said, are synchronous with things happening in the seals, and they refer to things that are seen with consistency. So that is when the trumpet blows, it's not a one thing happens. It's a here's this whole world that is being attacked, not in an instant, but maybe even over a long period of time. It's this big event, and I'll show you as we get into it. What about the incense? What do you think's going on with all that stuff?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. There's 2 verses about the incense part where it talks about it's the prayers, it's filled with the prayers of the saints.
Yeah, chapter
And
5, verse
then-
8. Yeah.
And then they add fire from the altar, and that's what's thrown onto the earth.
Yeah.
Kind of makes me think about those guys under the altar, like taking their prayer and including it with the power and doing justice stuff.
Yeah. So it's like, remember what the saints are doing under the altar? What are they doing?
Crying for justice, and how long?
Right. So that's the prayer.
Yeah,
Prayer is vindicate us. Like,
yeah,
we've been righteous. Do this thing. And it's almost as
Yeah.
if God is saying, I hear your
Yeah.
prayers.
I'm putting it in here.
Go get it.
Yeah.
Right. Like your prayers are accomplishing something almost. Like
Yeah,
right now, it's the prayers intermingled with the fire that he's sending out. And so you don't have to like figure out what every little thing is to get the big picture of what's happening. Right? That's what I mean. There's nothing brand new here. We know that God is going to be just and he's going to destroy his enemies, whatever that means. We're going to figure that out through the whole thing. But this is just another way of painting the picture. The prayers are actually availing something.
yeah,
Want justice, and God says, "You've got it. I hear you." That's been a story throughout the whole Old Testament, right? Apocalyptic or not apocalyptic, this is the call. Like God remembered Noah in the midst of, interestingly, 7 days, 40 days, 150 days, 150 days, 40 days, 7 days. That's the way the Noah flood narrative works. If you've ever noticed that, there's a chiasm going on there. Right smack dab in the middle of that, in between the 150 and the 150, is this phrase, and God remembered Noah. Right? And constantly, right? That's the Moses story as well. I've heard the cries of my people. And in chapter 1, there are 4 different types of cries of his people. Exodus chapter 1. The groanings, the screams, the cries, whatever. 4 different ways of saying that they're crying out to God. And then he comes and he takes care of them in 4 different ways in the next chapter, like as he calls Moses to them. So, and that's constant. Anytime that they repent, anytime they call on his name, he says, all right, I'm coming back, I'm gonna help. Even after he divorces them and leaves and goes to another country, God does that in Ezekiel, remember. Okay, he still comes back. He comes back, by the way, in Luke chapter 2, right? Jesus. Yeah, okay, good. All right, let's see here.
so what is the significance that what he added to the prayers in the censer was fire from the altar. That's where the sacrifices are offered. So,
Pure,
yeah.
purity, flame, fire purifies. Pure justice.
Well, the prayers and the sacrifices are mixed with all the other stuff that's thrown to the earth.
Incense, prayers, and fire from the altar.
Became peals of thunder, rumblings, flashes of lightning.
Yeah, that's what happens when it's thrown. But what's in the censer,
Yeah, does it say what's being like that there is a sacrifice?
I don't
didn't
know.
see
I
that.
just wonder if it's, well, it says.
Well,
he
you
took the
assume
censer,
the altar,
he filled
Yeah,
it with
just-
fire from the altar. That's what he
Yeah, I
put
just
in
wonder,
there.
like, yeah, I mean, like, it seemed like, you know, through the New Testament, you know, Jesus being the ultimate sacrifice,
Right.
like all sacrifices were kind of like done with. And so for some, I wonder what's on fire then at that point. Like, yeah. Or maybe it's just
I'm
fire.
working it out with you. I don't know. Yeah. So I'm thinking, okay, so these are the people who have been sacrificed, right? These are the people who have been martyred, have
The
been killed.
prayers, whose
So they have been-
prayers,
Well, yes,
Is that
so
what
it's
you
the
mean?
prayers of those who have been
yeah,
sacrificed.
right.
So they've been sacrificed. That's why God is now going to call for a sacrifice of the rest of the world, right? That's why there's going to be blood up to the horse's bridle. He's going to come with a sword, all those things, because they've taken the blood of his people. So I'm wondering if that altar imagery is the prayers going up, like a sacrifice smoke goes up, but also the people themselves there.
Yeah.
Like, it's what's
Mm.
happened to them. It's this idea of
Hmm.
what's happened to them and what they're asking for vindication. And he just grabs all of that and mingles it together. And like, that's, you've killed my people. They're crying for vengeance. Here it is.
And they're under the altar, right? So it's you know, you almost could have this visualization of their sacrifices of them fueling that fire from underneath the altar or something. And that's the
Mhm.
source of it.
The smoke is being amplified into actual fire.
And if it's the you can't actually burn incense to make smoke without fire. So the fire is the catalyst that actually makes the incense burn. And that's the power that generates it. And the power comes from the altar, comes from God.
Hmm.
If it's an imagery thing going on.
Yeah.
It's not so much like a fire in the sense of we're trying to burn something up in a bad way. He's trying to catch the incense on fire.
Well, fire and smoke.
It's just interesting. It's in the in the altar though. Like that's typically where the sacrifice
one
would
of
be,
the
right?
Yeah.
One of the altars in the temple was an incense altar. Like incense was a
Oh.
form of a not all sacrifices were blood. There were
Okay.
things that were burned as well.
Well, the altar of incense was the closest thing to the curtain into the Holy of Holies, and it was symbolic of the prayers of the saints.
Oh, okay.
Also of the clouds, right? Because you're going through each section. So there's the earth, which has the altar and the sea, or the earth and the sea outside, and then you move into the holy place, right? And then into the most,
Right.
but incense is the clouds that keep you out of that other realm.
Hmm.
But yes, it is definitely the incense is the prayer of the saints. There's lots of things going on, of course.
Mhm.
And that's the beauty of what John's doing here. He's grabbing all kinds of images from the Old Testament and putting them together. And I doubt seriously that the people reading this letter would have stopped to go, okay, what is the fire exactly? They would have just seen the story and pulled it together, and they were like, I get it. I get it. But I think it's good for us to try and figure it out. I don't know.
Fire and smoke may be related to sacrifice, and at the saints' prayers along with the sacrifice of Christ. That's what comes to my mind.
Okay, sacrifice of Christ. Yeah, all right.
Cleansing.
Yeah, that's what Lori said.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so things to remember as we're going into the trumpets. We haven't gotten the trumpets yet. All we've done is seen the angels get ready, right? They're about to do this. They're ready to blow them. So the trumpets correspond indirectly with the first 4 seals, just from a different perspective. We're going to see that. The seals seem to be the result of human sinfulness. Again, something I've said several times. The trumpets are more supernatural, it seems like. The church can't help but be affected by these first 4 trumpets. It's definitely going to happen, but we're not going to really see much about the church until we get to chapter 11, the 2 witnesses and stuff like that. So don't ask questions about what's going on with the church right now. We got to get to a few more chapters before we deal with that. And these judgments, even though they seem very violent, they are not final, right? Because you're going to hear in a second that the people are crying out, wishing that they could be dead, but they're not. So the point of this is still seems to be restorative. You have a chance to repent, maybe. And remember the literary genre that we're talking about here. We don't need to ask questions about how a star is falling out of heaven. Even, in chapter 8, a star is going to fall out of heaven when all the stars already fell in chapter 6. You don't have to ask, why do you have to protect the grass when all the grass has already been destroyed? Okay, those are not questions that they would be asking. And we can get to that if we really want to. We can say, well, actually, the star isn't a star. The star is an angel, and it's just called a star in this particular place, but it was really a star before. You can say the grass is vegetation, but now it's just talking about green grass. You can do that if you want to, but you don't have to. It's okay just to let the imagery grab you. Okay, not get into the fight. The same way you shouldn't get into the fight about what happened first on which days of creation. Okay, it's a poem. Okay, it doesn't make any difference that there was no green. Like we don't need to get into Genesis. That's my love. All right. So this is just an allusion to a bunch of plagues that you may have heard of before. Okay, or very well might be. All right. So verse 7. What time do I have? Oh my goodness. The first angel blew his trumpet, and there followed hail and fire mixed with blood, which fell on the earth. And a third of the earth was burnt up, and a third of the trees were burnt up, and all the green grass was burnt up. Okay, thoughts? Anything? This is
By a third.
why a third? Yeah, everything's going to be a third. That's a great question. So we had a fourth before. Now we're going to a third, which is more, but still not even close to half, right? It's not like half the stuff is gone.
Mhm.
So we've moved forward a little bit. And I think that's all that's supposed to be saying. Like there's progress. There's a moving forward, but we're not talking about the majority of things being destroyed. We're just talking about some stuff, a little bit more, some stuff. There's still hope. Still some kind of hope. And what plague, do you recognize this plague? Speaking of our 10 plagues from Exodus. Hail and fire mixed with blood.
The Nile?
And the Nile turns to blood. That's one of them. Yep. There's also hail. Hail and
There's
fire,
also
right?
hail. Yeah.
So we've got some things just grabbing hold of these ideas together, pulling them together. The Talmud, which is the Jewish commentary on Scripture, it's called oral law. It actually speaks of the sixth heaven being a storehouse of hail and fire. So, different levels of heaven. The sixth one is just a big storehouse of hail and fire, ready to come down at any time. The Sibylline oracles speak of rain and fire and blood as signs of the end times. That's what happens when it is this great red, bloody storm that's coming. we can just keep going. So the second angel blew his trumpet, something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea, and a third of the sea became blood. A third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. Okay, so the first was a third of the land. Second is a third of the sea. Right? Maybe you're to summarize that.
Yes.
Oops.
Yeah. So maybe this is some memories, like Vesuvius had erupted pretty recently at that time. So maybe they'd remember the lava in the sea and the water and the ships being destroyed and stuff. Maybe that's connected to it in some way. That had just happened, like in their lifetime. They would have seen it happen. Or maybe it comes from other apocalyptic material that we don't know about. So, but it does remind us again of plague 2 and the Nile turning, like, if it was 7 before and the hail hitting the ground, this one probably has more to do with the Nile, rivers turning to blood.
Is this, so this being seven instances, is this an undoing of creation? Like, because I see that, I mean, we've got land and then sea and then living creatures, and I'm skipping ahead, but like it says the sun and moon and stars. I mean, that's like kind of like an undoing of creation.
I think that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Edit, undo.
Yeah. So we call this an uncreation or a decreation, depending on what teachers you learn from, right? An uncreation. And that's a normal thing too. It's a normal pattern throughout scripture, right? We talk about creation and recreation. And in between that, a decreation. That's what the flood story is, the decreation. Taking the, the waters that are separated vertically and then separated horizontally, and it's pushing them back together. That's the flood story. And it's going
But
to
only a third of it. That's
but a third of it. That's right.
like, it's not like a total undoing of creation. It's, yeah.
That's what the plague is too, right? The plagues are an undoing of creation, but not all of it. Just here come the locusts, here come the gnats, here come the hail, here comes the boils. This just
The frogs, yeah.
all right. The third angel blew his trumpet, and a great star fell from heaven, blazing like a torch, and it fell on a third of the rivers and the fountains of water. The name of the star is Wormwood. A third of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the water because it was made bitter. All right, so maybe that's the Nile. It's another connection to the Nile, right?
What's wormwood?
She just lost a tooth. Sorry.
No, I rated her first. What is wormwood? Anybody know? Other than Calvin's teacher.
I have the notes here. It's the name of the plant and of the bitter tasting extract derived from it.
That's right. Yep. So in the Old Testament, God says it'll give Israel wormwood to eat because they've rejected him. Just a bitter plant. But no one got my other joke. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that I don't mess around a lot. I'm all serious all the time. Okay. You guys know Calvin's teacher? Do you know what I'm talking about? Wormwood? Nobody? From Calvin and Hobbes?
Calvin and Hobbes.
Mrs. Wormwood.
Oh,
Yes.
Oh,
that was his
Calvin,
teacher's name.
Calvin.
Sorry.
Cartoon. Oh, yeah.
Calvin and Hobbes is a
Yeah.
brilliant theological and philosophical,
Yeah.
Bill Watterson, he's a reader. He knows what's going on. Nothing in there is by mistake, right? I mean, it's named after John Calvin, right? And Thomas Hobbes, the two people who thought depravity, it's all about depravity. So Calvin is this depraved child, humanity at its most depraved. So when you see things like Mrs. Wormwood, he knows what he's doing. He's read C.S. Lewis. So if you've ever read Screwtape Letters, right, Wormwood is in there. But that's based on the Old Testament text about there being a bitter plant. Anyway.
I forgot that.
Little connections here. So this is a star named Wormwood, blazing like a torch, and it's destroying the rivers and the fountains of water. So first we had the ground, the land, then we had the salt water. Now we've got fresh water. Right? That's what's happening. And the fresh water is made bitter. Can't drink it anymore. By the way, poisoning fresh water is a major act of war throughout the Old Testament, ancient Near East.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
how you, that's how you destroy a city, right? You poison its water supply. And shooting stars are omens of destruction in the ancient Near East as well. Today we wish on them and we wish good things, but that's not the way they used to work. Okay, these are creatures coming. Sometimes the stars are angels that come to Earth. In fact, probably next week we'll talk about that because that's about what's about to happen. All right, fourth angel blew his trumpet. A third of the sun was struck, and a third of the moon, and a third of the stars. So the third of their light was darkened. A third of the day was kept from shining, and likewise a third of the night. I don't even know how a third of it works, but you don't have to, right? You could still picture it. The third of the sun is blotted out. All right, that's fine. Third of the moon, third of the stars. Now we've already seen the moon and stars already. They turned to blood and been blotted out already, right? So here it is, it's happening again, a third of them. And more is going to happen to them as well. So if you had an all dark day, you'd probably be pretty freaked out. If the sun didn't come up tomorrow, we would consider that to be a portent into the end of the world, I think, right? Yep. And the ninth plague is thick darkness spread over the land. So we've got this darkness. And John says in Mark, quoting Isaiah, I think it's in the book of Mark, quoting Isaiah, he talks about the sun being darkened and the moon not giving its light. Apocalyptic language. This is cataclysmic language. It's the end of the world stuff. All right, so we've got the first four, right? Oh, there, trumpets. Got four. So now we're going to get into the whoa, whoa, whoa. Then I looked and I heard an eagle crying with a loud voice as it flew in mid-heaven. Woe, woe, woe to those who dwell on the earth at the blast of the other trumpets, which the three angels are about to blow. So this is like a warning on the next three trumpets that are coming in. The trumpets themselves are warnings about the bowls that are coming in some sense. Right? So it's just lots of warnings. But how do we have to warn you? We're going to warn you with things with like fresh water going away and the sea going away and the earth and the sun, the moon, and the stars. These are the warnings. So now we have the whoa, 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 called out by the angels, warned by a bird of prey. Hey, it's going to happen. An eagle. Eagles aren't always wonderful. It's eagle or vulture. It's a a carrion bird. One of those that not carrion.
Bird of prey.
Yes. Well, yeah. Actually, I'm going to take that back because they don't know whether it's an eagle or vulture. It doesn't really make any difference. But one is a bird of prey and one is not. So a vulture is a carrion bird and an eagle is a bird of prey, right? I think so. Anyway. But I think the concept here is there's a predatory nature to this eagle, but he's crying out. He's trying to say, here's the woes, and he's trying to reach the superlative, whoa, 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 similar to the holy, 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 thrice holy, right? It's going to be that. And that's these three things that are coming right here. 5, 6, and 7 are our three woes. Okay, that's how a lot of people translate. All right, so it's 9:03. Do we want to jump into chapter 9? Or do we want to talk? We want to try and apply it for a second. Let's see where we're at, apply it, and then jump into chapter 9, if we want to. We've only got 10 minutes. So what are some things that this brings to mind? I mean, it's not written to you, right? It's written for you, though. It's not written to you. So what does it mean for you? It's not something you should be looking for. You shouldn't be looking for a star to fall out of heaven or a third of that. That's not what the call is here.
It talked more about the oppressed, how it appealed to the oppressed, what it meant to the oppressed.
Yeah, well, you tell me, or not just necessarily you, anybody. That's always the question, right? Who are you supposed to identify with as the reader? Should you identify with the people who are being killed right now? The people under the altar, or the people who God is getting judgment against?
The under the altar guys. We should
Yes.
think of ourselves as one of the sealed ones, shouldn't we?
Okay. So if you put yourself under the sealed ones, that means you are the persecuted, you're the abused, you are the ones being taken advantage of by the empire.
We're the ones that are protected.
Both.
That's right. Protected from the judgment, but protected ultimately. Right now, you're the ones crying out, how long? Or you're the ones on earth that other people in heaven are crying out, how long? And they said, well, we have to wait till their suffering is complete. Right. So I'm going to ask that question again.
But also the people under the altar calling for justice, and their prayers are part of it.
Yeah.
So they're on both sides.
Are we the ones in need of justice? Or are we the ones in need of things?
What? In need of what?
Warning.
Can you look something up for me on YouTube?
I don't know.
Which one fits us better? I mean, we want to be the people under the altar, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're aspirational to be sure.
No,
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm taking it as, this is a story about God is going to bring justice. And I'm thinking that his church will be justified. His church in the past, present, and future, and those who are in heaven right now, you know. I'm taking it as that justice will be done in God's way, and hoping that that will be carried out with love, knowing that will be carried out with love because he loves us. So I'm thinking that I'm going to be in the ones who are going to be with him wherever he is.
That's cool.
So-
All right.
I think we're also, aren't we also going to be living through this? If it happens in our time, we will be living through this until our suffering is complete.
See, here's what I've been trying to do for the last 12 weeks or so, is to tell you that we are living.
We are in it. Yeah.
This is not something
Right.
that will happen in the future. This is something that we're already in
Right.
the middle of. So the
But
question
it's
is,
something
are
that
we the
will,
ones crying out for God to vindicate us? Or are we the ones going, life's pretty darn good, and I hope God doesn't upset this pattern.
No.
oh
Yeah, I
no,
mean,
I
not
like where I'm at. I'm in power.
I feel like, I mean, when I read this, and I mean, it's scary stuff to me. Like, it's always been scary to me. And yeah, like you think about all this destruction that's going on. I mean, I read this as destruction. Like, and I know that there's like, you know, a plan to it, and there's, you know, it serves the purpose of vengeance and everything, but like, to have suffered so much that this is like a good outcome or is justified to you. Like, I don't know that I will ever experience that level of suffering to think that this is what it takes, you know, this destruction of a third of the earth and all these people suffering and dying and everything. Like, for someone to have suffered so much and to feel like they've been so wronged that this is what it takes to right it is like something I can't even myself imagine, which means that I'm probably not the one under the altar. So yeah, I think if it's scary to you, like, well, for me, I think like, if this is scary to me, it means that I'm probably like, this isn't what I'm asking for, right? This isn't like that level of judgment that I want to have on the rest of the earth, because the earth is treating me pretty good right now. And like, for it all to burn away is scary to me. But if you are so beaten down and have suffered so much that the earth is, your whole life has been nothing but suffering, like, this is like, oh my gosh, finally a reset. But I can only imagine what it's like to feel that way. So probably doesn't bode well.
I'll argue that 95%, 90% of the world's population wants a reset.
Right, but not us. Yeah.
Not, we've been in control for a very, very long time.
Mhm.
And
This is
it's just not written about us.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's gonna
We
become
just-
really, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You think of what has in our recent past gone on to people's, the atom bomb, and the horror of life afterwards, and all the death and the wars and the poverty, the hunger, the whatever. I mean, our culture, the life that we are living in, our culture that we're living in has experienced, some of these sufferings that these people are crying out about. If we're not, I mean, in our lives, we've been
I mean,
terrible suffering. Still today, there is terrible suffering.
And don't we cry out for those who are suffering? We may not be in the midst of starvation and war and all those things, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't touch us.
indeed, that's not the point at all. Because you're right. I mean, we are soft-hearted, caring people.
And our culture today scares me. I mean,
I think that's it.
more than reading Revelation.
Yes. The hatred.
Yeah. I mean, common courtesy is a thing of the past.
Yes.
You know what? We're
You could
gonna
probably
see soon,
rewrite
though.
this.
Oh, go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry.
You could probably rewrite Revelation starting in 1950 and put modern words to it about America and write as scary of a ending as a call to action. If we don't change our ways, this is what's going to happen to us.
Yeah. And so the question for us as Christians, because we are not Americans, we happen to be Americans, but that's not our identity,
Right.
is how do we come out from among them and be separate? Because we're about to see, within a couple of chapters, we're going to see a beast come out of the land and a beast come out of the water. And I'm going to argue that I think this is both spiritual and political or economic power.
Yeah.
The things that we have as Christians in America, these are like, this is the beast. And the things that we keep wanting back are these things. If I could just get back to the way it was when we had power and when we, I don't know, like how complicit are we even accidentally? Because I don't think any of you want to be complicit in hurting anyone. I know I don't want to be.
No.
But I wonder how complicit we are just by being part of this particular world at this particular time. I don't even know if I'm not even sure we can fight totally against it. Like, that's part of the problem. How do you not be an American? Do we like give up our wealth and go over to Ukraine and try and be killed? Like, I don't think that's the call. So what does it look like to be separate and yet still in it, to call out for justice and to put ourselves on the sides of those who are being oppressed? I don't even know what that looks like. I gotta say, not fully. I can take little steps.
The dollar hegemony is a big part of it, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And the Bretton Woods and really post World War II, when we were left standing and the rest of the world was fundamentally in ruin, that's when it all began. And I'll argue it started incrementally.
Started in the Garden of Eden.
Well, indeed. Oh, no, you're quite right. I mean, and knowledge was sought instead of God's splendor.
It's
But
I feel like we do live in proximity to those who are oppressed in this this country though. Like there's so many different levels of oppression. I feel like if you want to, I mean, just my opinion, but like if any person is not sure how to help the oppressed, you should ask the oppressed. Like they might have some good answers about how they need, you know, people to ally with them. And yeah, like, and I don't know that we're good as, I mean, again, I'm speaking for myself. I shouldn't say we. I'm not good at being proximate with those people. And you know, like I think when Jesus said, like, you know, when I was a prisoner, you visited me, and when I was hungry, you fed me, and like, and that requires being proximate and alongside those people who are an embodiment of Jesus. And it's for me, it's very easy for me to separate myself from that, because it is painful. Like to go alongside someone who's being oppressed puts you at risk of being oppressed yourself. And I tend to be pretty insular to that and try to keep myself safe and my family safe. And, you know, it does, like, I know that I should be stepping out more and putting myself in those situations more than I do.
Yeah.
I think what it looks like is that, like, it's recognizing that we all live privileged lives, some of us more so than others, and using our privileges as much as possible to help those who don't.
And interacting, may I say this, and interacting in a way that allows them to understand that I'm on your side. I care about your what is happening to you, the oppression that you are feeling. Interacting in a way that lets them know that you care about them too, and make it at a point to do that. I think that's one way we can live in the world to show God's love, is making it a point to live in a way and interact in a way with those who are oppressed, understand that we care. And so whatever you can do with that, with our money, our affluence, whatever we have, but just making that kind of communication, that kind of interaction, instead of avoiding it as we do, and staying away from it. You know, we do that.
And I do think I myself have to be careful of so I think it's very important to communicate that, yes, we love you and we want to be beside you and everything, but then to actually do it too. Like, you know, I'm not saying you're saying this, but like, in addition to saying that I love you, we also like probably need to put some food in their stomach, in their pantries, and take care of their kids. And like it takes both, I think, to really like help in ways that really show the love, you know, and which we would like, if we truly have the love of God in our heart, that is like should come naturally. So, but easier said than done for me.
A
All
good
right.
place
It is
to
nice.
start is make eye contact.
Yeah.
Acknowledge them.
Yeah.
Right. It's 9:18. Travis, you got cut off in the middle of a sentence. You have the last word if you would like to have it, and then we're closing out. Oh, this is your chance. No, I'm not gonna say anything after you.
Because and
So, like, for example, a privilege that I have is I'm recently hiring some people. I could probably pay them $8 to $9 an hour and they would work, and I could take advantage of that fact. I'm paying them more because I can afford it. And, you know, if I can afford more later, then I'll pay them more later too. That's just an example of how we can use our different privileges. Some of us are in positions like that. Some of us, maybe we don't have money. Maybe some of you guys are struggling financially, but you know, you walk by people, you have time, just be nice and talk to people. I mean, we all buy things from places that are more responsible and caring, you know, and do our homework, those sorts of things. So,
All right, you got the last word, 9:19. We are done. I will see you here next week for chapter 9. And then there'll be a few weeks. I'll tell you what's happening after that. But I think I've got a couple guest speakers coming in to talk after that to give us a big overview. So it should be pretty